Good evening, everyone. My name is Scott Burns, co-chair of the Budget Appropriations Committee. I call the meeting to order at 6:09. I'll have committee members introduce themselves, and then other council reps, and then representatives from the city. So,
I'm Ernie, co-chair of the Budget Committee.
Anita Martinez, non-committee member.
Maria Valle, non-committee member.
Fred Harvey, represent 136, committee member.
Richard Ortiz, 135th, committee member.
131st, Denise Illinois, non-committee member.
and from the city, Fred, Wayne.
Fred G, deputy CEO.
All right, thank you. And then,
Kathleen Brickett, OPM.
Frank McNeary, OPM.
okay,
Constance Vickers, W Chief of Staff.
all right. Iselin, you want
Isolina de Jesus, Director of Central Grants.
Asia Burks, Administrative Assistant, Essential Grants.
Maggie Adorno, grant writer.
Angelica Ojeda, OPM Analyst, Central Grants.
Candace Peter Payne, Grant Writer.
and
Ashley Aguilera, Legislative Director.
Okay. Very good. So this evening, our agenda, we had central grants and general budget discussion topics. Central grants, we want to hear from early, because again, we know there are factors in play in DC and through Hartford that are very likely to affect our budget and our city. To know that earlier in the budget cycle, I think will help us all. So we will eventually turn over to the department head. What we'll do first is we'll exhibit the items from central grants and then move on from there. So, Council.
Yep, I make a motion that we accept Central Grants Department updates at 04-14-025A.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, so motion by Mr. Newton, second by Mr. Ortiz, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you.
Next, article that they're going to submit is the federal grants identified for potential federal executive order impact. That will be 04-14-2025B.
Second.
Second from Mr. Ortiz, motion by Mr. Newton, all in favor?
Aye.
Anybody else?
Can you do the aye?
Okay, thank you. And continue.
The last one is application review and award criteria. For the following criteria will be used to score the application at 04-14-2025C.
Second.
Okay, motion by Mr. Newton, second by Mr. Ortiz, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you. So before we turn over to Iselina, we'll ask OPM Director Frank just to speak a little bit on the budget, out of the budget book, and then we'll move to discussion from the department.
So just a very minimal increase to this budget, pretty much just contractual raises and so on. There are no vacancies, as you can see here. Everybody in the department is here. No changes in their discretionary line items, so just pretty much contractual increases from here, so nothing more than that.
All right, any questions from the committee in terms of any of these budgetary line items?
What, can we talk about what's been exhibited? I don't know too much.
Yeah, let's just touch this. I have one question on the personnel side. It doesn't seem too substantive, but there's a switch from administrative assistant to administrative secretary. Can you just hear, or I'm sorry, the other way around. The thought behind that or what that may impact, I don't know.
Yes,
So, I wasn't here last year when all these changes were being made, but as far as I can tell, and having my staff researching this and looking at it myself, is it just seems like there was a little bit of, mistake on the title needed, to match the pay scale that was implemented last year. So this is really just reversing a change that was made in the budget book last year, but there's, as you can see, there's actually it's about the same amount of money for the employees, so it's not a material change, it's just more mechanical administrative change to true things up.
Is that fair, Lisa?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. Okay, yeah, other than that, the changes are not, significant as Frank mentioned, so. So yeah, I think at this point, perhaps we'll have, Iselina and team, I guess, speak to your presentation.
Yes.
Okay. Really cool, we'll see it up on the screens.
Two, look at that.
Slowly catching up to this century. Yeah, so why don't you take it from there, and then I think, would you like to take questions if they come up as we go along, or?
So I was gonna ask, we'd prefer to do the presentation first and then do question and answers at the end if possible.
I think that's okay, it's not
Okay.
too long. Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you. Okay, thank you for having us all here this evening. I am
I'm gonna let you,
going to open the presentation with the federal executive order impact piece of it, and then the staff will take on most of the rest of the presentation with me on assist. Okay, so the next slide shows what's been impacted so far. So upon the executive order being released, the mayor asked for OPM to take the lead on determining what potential impact there would be on any grants. That was a heavy lift because we didn't exactly know what was happening at the time. I think that most of us are still unclear, but we took the information that we had, which seemed to be identifying DEI, climate change, environmental kind of things. We went into already existing spreadsheets that have all of how we monitor all of our grants and went through each one of them to determine which might have any of those elements contained within the projects. We did that and we came up with this list. So this is the handout that you received. We then met with departments, had departments talk about their projects, and we figured out which ones might have immediate impact, or shouldn't say figured out, tried to determine. On this list, this is not an exhaustive list of all the federal grants that we have, it's only the list of things that we thought could be impacted. The blue highlighted items are just things that we're not really concerning ourselves with right now. All of the yellow and red stuff were the things that we thought could be impacted immediately. The red items are things that have been impacted and have been terminated. That's this list here that's on the screen. If you look at the bottom of this list, it shows us that right now the terminated amount is about $2.8 million. If you look at the status on this spreadsheet, you'll see that they'll say awarded, pending, or A/pending. Awarded is awarded, that means it's implemented and ongoing. Pending means we're waiting to hear back from the funder, and awarded pending means we're awarded, but we don't have a contract. So we are monitoring all of these things and have come up with plans to limit spending while this is playing out. We don't have a lot of information about what's happening now or what's happening in the future, so it's hard for us to sit here and advise on how this can impact the general fund budget in FY26. That's my federal impact. Does anybody have specific questions about that? Because I would take those now just to get that conversation.
Well, Councilman Newton did have a question, so where do you want to go?
yeah, on the pending, this is just federal stuff we're looking at, or is it also included with the state?
This is any federal and state pass-through, so any federal money that goes to the state and then comes to us. that we determined could have potential impact.
So the state would have a same thing on what's pending.
So if you look
$7.
over here at this grant type, if you see that it says state/fed,
Yeah.
those are all the ones that are coming to us from the state, from the feds.
Okay. Okay.
Could you just, I know it's written there, but could you speak to what the 4 grants are that have been thus far terminated?
Okay, yeah, and we put that here for you too, it's in the
Yeah.
presentation, so we called this one G to G, and I'm probably gonna refer to it, but it's a government-to-government, opportunity that was issued, that we applied for a Complete Streets project. So it was about a half mile of East Main Street that was gonna get pedestrian and cyclist kind of improvements, ADA ramps and all of those things. But the opportunity was specifically about getting to those that were underserved and all those other things, which kind of made it DEI.
And just, can you go through all 4?
Yeah, I just didn't know if you were done. I saw you writing, I wanted to give you some time. So ELC 2 was specifically for COVID-19 testing and surveillance. So we identified that because as soon as they came out, they said COVID money gone. So that was for testing. The supplemental funding was also for the health department to support immunization activities around not just COVID, but also other diseases as well. And then the last one would have been the community directed spending grant that we got from Himes in FY25 for the design of the, no, I'm sorry, mixing them up. This was for the CIT program. Crisis intervention with social services and the police department. So we have put in for some staff and some training for police officers and 911 dispatchers. That was about $812,000 and that was terminated as well.
Yeah, Fred.
Can you explain to me the DPH, ELC2, the difference in the number awarded and lost? Because there's 2 different numbers. Did you have some of the money and then you spent it and the rest they took?
Yeah, so that was the amount of the award, and then the amount that says under loss would have been the amount they took back.
Okay.
We were in the midst of that, spending that.
The money for East Main Street, so we lost it all. Could it have been saved if whomever was in charge acted on this right away rather than wait and
No.
waiting and waiting?
No, we applied, we were awarded, we went through the process. I wish I had enough time to sit here and talk to you about what all the processes are, but it isn't that we apply, we get the grant, and we go. We apply, we wait for their application process 6 to 9 months. Then we wait for contracting. Some of these, like EPA and HUD grants, have requirements that you just don't even understand. Scott, if I could ask you, he recently went through a process with us on a grant, or has been involved in that process for what seems like not a lot of money, right? When we talk about the millions and millions of dollars that people expect us to get. And the amount of work that's gone into that, and having everyone understand what is required, right? So I'm just gonna use this as an example. I hope nobody gets mad at me. But timelines, right? So you say, we need a timeline. And people don't understand that when the funder says timeline, they mean this is gonna happen between this time and this time, this is gonna happen between this time and this time. And we get responses like, oh, we'll do it as soon as possible. And getting that information from the people that we're working with and having them understand, and their as soon as possible is because they don't know. But it's just not enough information to give to a funder. They want to know that this is gonna get accomplished. And if you're beginning a project without a plan, then they see that coming a mile away. And they're very specific about what they want. You don't get to decide what you're gonna do later. You have to tell them ahead of time.
Yeah, just maybe that is a good pitching point to explain to some of us on how the grant process works.
So I'm gonna have, that's part of our presentation.
Because my understanding, and maybe I'm wrong, I know there's been a lot of criticism about going after cleanup monies for these projects.
Oh, so funny that you mentioned that.
I need you to help us understand that whenever we apply for dollars, do we have to have a project all ready to go?
And not a thought of a project, not like I think I'm gonna do. You have to have a well-planned project 95% of the time.
So, a lot of people were under the impression, at least after talking to you, you made it clear to me, that when we apply for monies for brownfields, I use brownfields because Bridgeport got a whole bunch of brownfields, that the federal government will not give you money unless you have a project and it's ready to go.
The state and or the feds, yes.
So, they're not gonna let us sit on brownfield dollars with a pipe dream that hopefully they will do it. So, is that accurate?
That is very accurate. It is very accurate. I could repeat your words if you'd like me to, but yes, that's very accurate. We do not get to apply for grant funds for things that we want to figure out later. Grant funds are competitive. We're competing with, especially federal money, everybody in the country. They want well thought out and planned projects submitted. If you're not ready, come next year, come the year following, but you can't submit an application in a competitive situation without things like designs in place and partners in place and other financing in place. All of that has to.
Because I think your department, I can say this now, it's taken a terrible hit because the lack of knowledge that I've heard people say, well, we're not applying for grants. And
So let's just back that up, because this was part of someone else's presentation, but since we're on the topic, this document, I'm not too sure what you exhibit it as.
This is item C, for,
This is just one page out of the no fund notification for that brownfield money that you're mentioning. And we don't have to look at the whole thing, but if you just look at the two shaded areas, we're shaded by them, not by us. This is the application review criteria. So when they're looking at our applications that we submit, this is what they're looking at when they're scoring it. So the first thing, shovel readiness and project merits. What's the first thing it says? Remediation plan completeness. Presence of a developer/public-private partnership and redevelopment plan completeness. We have to submit that with our application. We have to have a developer and all those things in place. Financing, down at the bottom, applicant development partner contribution share. You have to tell them that you have the rest of the money and where it's coming from.
all right, so we're clear now that she can't apply for certain dollars unless there's a project in hand and all these criteria have been made. They will not let the city of Bridgeport just sit on brownfield dollars, am I correct?
Correct. They want to know that when that property's cleaned up, development is coming right after.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
yeah, absolutely. Okay, you wanna keep going through your, oh, I'm sorry.
We're gonna, oh, go.
I just had a question, Iselina. Why did we lose the CIT dollars? That is so critical.
I'm not too sure, so let me explain that process, I'm not too sure if you're familiar with it. But CDS, directed spending, or community project spending, they call it different things, is the congressman, right? So your congressmen and your senators get an opportunity to basically earmark funds to their smaller towns, right? So everyone understanding that it's difficult for smaller towns to compete with larger cities that have more resources, and they use this as opportunity for the congressmen and senators to earmark money. So they'll put it out and say, yes, we're doing community directed spending this year, and then along with it, we get a packet of all the grant programs that are open to community directed spending. So it's not that they open up something different and say, oh, you just get this money because you're great. They say, here are the grant programs that we could help you apply to. We first apply to the congressmen and the senators through an application process, and then they go and use that to get it approved and pass through their legislative process and put into law. So what happened this year is it got approved. And the only thing that hadn't happened is they hadn't signed off on the approved budget and passing the laws that come along with that. So when the Trump administration came in, they said, oh, we're gonna sign off on this, but we're taking that out. No community directed spending, and they eliminated all community directed spending for FY '25.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, if that's all, I'm gonna pass it on to the next person.
Okay. So hi everyone, my name is Candace. I'm now part of the Central Grants team, and I am going to be talking a little bit about my position. So I've been here for about 4 weeks now, but in my first week of being here, I believe I applied to like 3 grants, and I learned very firsthand how fast paced and how high volume this department really is. There are a ton of grants that are being requested through the department, and so I think having some type of knowledge about the behind-the-scenes process is very important to understand. So I'm going to kind of just give you guys just more information about what the process of applying looks like, but on the pre-award phase of it all. So prior to applying to a grant, we have a few important steps. The first one is we need to identify the funding opportunity, and that comes in various different shapes or forms, whether it is our department seeking different grant opportunities, or a department, they saw a grant opportunity out there and they say, hey, you guys, we would like to apply, and then so they would send us a NOFO, which is a notice of funding opportunity, or we would go seek it out. And that is really just information from the organization who is issuing the grant about what they want to see in our grant application. And I have if my thing comes on. Oh no.
Turn it back on.
Oh. Okay, here we are. Okay. So within this, it is our grant overview form. So the NOFO is very extensive. It could be roughly 60 to, I don't know, almost 100 pages. And so we as a team decided to create a form where we can kind of slim it down to some of the most critical things that the application is requiring. And so you can see here we have information about the department that might be interested or that we think could be interested in a said grant. We get the contact information from the person who might be the lead on it. We get the contact information from the funding agency. We get their name, and we write down what the grant opportunity name is. And we also get their email. And these two are very critical when you are actually applying, because some NOFOs, notice of funding opportunities, will say, you have to submit this grant to said person and said person only. And if you do not, you're disqualified. So just being mindful of who we send our application to is going to be very, very important. The type of fundings, whether it's a new application that we're submitting or it's something that we've done in the past, so that we can kind of go back and be reflective on what we submitted versus what they're asking for now. We look at the grant deadline. We look at additional deadlines, because aside from it, like the grant being having its own deadline, they might issue some other ones. And one that comes to mind is like a letter of intent, and they might require that before even submitting the application in and of itself. So you have to just be very mindful of what is being requested, when they want it. We also have some match requirement information here, if they require it or not. We do the grant amount available that's there, just a brief scope, and then we also just include any other things that stand out to us in the NOFO about any additional documentation that they require, whether it's letters of support from the community, because we've seen that before, and just mayor signatures, anything else that they want to just paint it out for us. And then after kind of surfing through all of that, we then notify the department that is, again, has probably reached out to us, or that we want to reach out to, and we try to have a meeting with them. We want to set the expectation of, hey, this is what this grant is requiring, this is what this organization wants to see out of us, And again, kind of to hit on what you guys were talking about in regards to having a plan or a project, we want to make sure that, it's there rather than just applying and being like, oh, well, we'll come up with something on the fly, because a lot of these grants want to see data. They want to see past, I don't know, like you've done in the past, and so, they want to award on what you've done in the past, or what you continue to do. After that, we then begin to assign duties, whether it's from who's going to draft the narrative, right? Because if there's a grant, something in regards to the health department, they might be way more knowledgeable and can help us draft out our narrative, and they can also help us draft out our budget. And so we kind of coordinate with them and say, hey, you guys can have this narrative back to us by a certain date, and then we'll kind of, work around all of that. And just to hit on what Iselina was saying about the timelines, it's really important to make sure that, after we schedule certain duties, that everyone follows up with them, because we might get noticed of a grant fund, I don't know, a week ago, and now it's due 3 weeks later. So just making sure that we are on track is going to be very, very critical for when it comes time to applying. After notifying the department and having conversations with them, we then prepare for the application. And what this is after we get the drafts from the department, we then edit it up on our own. Because a lot of these grants, they require you to have a certain, font size, a certain header in your email. They want you to rename every document a certain way, and that's probably for their own sake, because they're getting a million maybe applications and they want to be able to pinpoint what's what. And so, some department might send us stuff, but we have to make sure it all is in alignment to what is being asked by said organization who has issued the grant. And then, after we prepare the application, before just submitting it, once we feel like everything is in good standing, we have to do an internal review and approval. And that looks like sending documentation to the Office of Policy and Management, OPM, for their approval on certain things with the budget, or just with the grant amount in and of itself. And so I have an image of what that form is. So yes. This is the form we sent to OPM, and it kind of just details like the executive summary of the grant, what type of grant, is it competitive, more times than not they usually are. If it's a new grant, if it's a continuation, kind of what I was saying before. But this is like the golden butter for OPM. They want to know the grant budget, how much money we're looking to seek, if there's a match requirement, what account is being taken out of. And so this is what we have to send to OPM before sending it off. And what's so critical about this is everyone has to sign. Iselina has to sign, OPM has to sign, I have to sign, the department head for that grant has to sign. And again, mind you, this all has to happen within a certain time frame. And departments are very busy. They're doing all the things they're doing to help this city. And so, it's more so just being on top of everyone to say, hey, this is due by this date. I need this signature by this date, because now, if we have to send it to the city attorney's office because the mayor's signature is needed, the city attorney's office wants to see this as well, because they want to see that OPM said, okay, it's good to go. And so I can show you the other document that we have to send to the mayor's office. And so this is the certification form. And it, again, just kind of let the city of attorney's office know what kind of grant it is that we're applying for, how much money we're looking to seek from it, what we plan to do with the funds, etc. And we would fill out this part. We as me. And then OPM, again, they'd have to sign off on anything that we send to the city attorney's office. Then city attorney says, okay, cool, OPM likes it, we like it too. And then after OPM and the city attorney's office signs it off, they then send it to the mayor's office. So it's a lot in terms of keeping up with everyone.
To get one grant.
It's a lot in terms of keeping up with everyone, especially when you have a 2 to 4 week timeline to get everything in. It's really important that the deadlines are met, and that they're set and everyone's doing what they're needing to do. And then lastly, in terms of the pre-award, we would submit. We hit the finish line, we submit, and then after submittal, we would then present to City Council for a resolution. So that's a little bit about just the pre-award phase. Could be very extensive, sorry. But yeah, now I'm going.
Councilman Newton has a question.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got a question. For number one, that's too many processes that you have to go through.
Yeah.
And we've had this problem, trying to get people hired, it's gotta go back to the mayor, the chief of staff, the pope, this person, that slows down a lot of processes.
Yeah.
We need to find a smoother process, because I have to tell you, we already been complaining. Too many processes, we can't get people appointed, we can't, because it has to go through 5 or 6 people.
Yeah.
That's too many people to go through. So that's something that the council needs to look at, man, because that's a terrible process. I don't care what nobody says, because time is of the essence.
Yeah.
And I know some directors, I'm not gonna call no names, it's hard to catch up to them. Okay? And we need to I think that's too many processes, because you miss out on a lot of things. And we're having the same problem with other documents that float around. You gotta get the controller's signature, you gotta get CAO, you gotta do this. That's too much stuff. So it's something to think about, because they are under a time frame.
Yeah.
So that's something we need to look at.
Yeah, so, Grants Director or Mr. CAO, do you have any thoughts or feedback on anything like that?
Yeah, through the chair,
Yeah.
we are working on internal processes to streamline some of the signatures on some of the documents. But there has to be some checks and balances also. And in times past, there are some individuals that took advantage of the process. So we had to implement those safeguards to make sure that people were following the proper protocols and procedures. But now we have a lot of different directors and a lot of different individuals that are in place now that we can kind of scale back a little of some of the demands we put on some of these documents.
Well, can I just follow up? The hardest signature is to get is probably the mayor's. Because he's always traveling. He might be in DC today, Philly tomorrow, and you gotta wait until he gets back. So we need to figure out, I use that because it's true. By the time they get it to the mayor, sign it, no telling how long.
It's been a lot easier to get in the sign in the past year.
Look, man, don't try to listen. Don't try to come for
I have
Jim.
some witnesses in the room, the director of Central
I
Banks can
agree,
verify.
1000%. It has been a lot easier since the past year. It's gotten even better starting this year.
That's good, okay.
He has some pressure that's sitting behind you that helps get those documents signed.
Yeah, just to sense the argument you're trying to think, to do a little bit of electronic signatures on part of this that may help streamline, which is great. But I do think what happens is in some of these grants, it requires a CAO. You know, the agency, the federal agency kind of forces, because it's gotta be a municipal official who signs says it's okay to apply, so that's partly why they have to go to the mayor. I wish they didn't.
Iselina Pike, for her, in the past, we have went to a lot of NLC conferences, and I know you were short of staff at that particular time. For the boot camps, there's some of the federal grants that's out that we weren't able to apply for because you didn't really have the staff. So now that you do have the staff and we're going to these conferences, will you be sending one of your grant writers?
More than likely, yes, but I just want to add to that, we don't apply for grants because we don't have people. We prioritize what we want to apply for. So it was very much a priority to apply for infrastructure grants. However, in order to apply for them, you have to have shovel-ready projects, and we don't have those. So I think if we can work on identifying shovel-ready projects, and that makes it easier for us to apply.
Yeah, because I think there was quite a few breakout sessions that some of the people that I talked to, we met the criteria based on the population that we serve and having our city that we were able to apply for some of the grants, but we
And we
need to
did apply for a
more.
lot of them. We
Yeah.
applied for a lot of the infrastructure grants for the Congress Street Bridge.
Uh-huh.
And if, let us do our presentation, I think a lot of what we're gonna present is gonna answer a lot of those questions you have.
So, now I'm gonna introduce, oh, sorry.
Mr. Ortiz.
Sorry.
Mine's gonna be real simple.
Okay.
From start to finish, your time frame.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, when you get it,
Yep.
by the time it comes to the council to sign off, is what?
I'll take that
Yeah.
just because you're new. So we submit to the city council as soon as we put in the application.
Okay.
So we submit the application and it gets usually put on the next meeting agenda or the following. So you'll get it as soon as that process allows, your council process.
Maybe it's a little long. I'm legit thinking like how much the time frame? 6 weeks, 8 weeks?
What is your question again, if you could repeat your
Well, when
question?
you get the grant, when you submit the grant, your entire process, how much the time frame? In other words,
Hold
2 weeks,
on.
3 weeks, 5 weeks?
Time frame to submit an application?
When you submit it?
I don't
you
understand
get
your
it.
question, when you
Okay,
submit it.
get the same thing we do the same thing. We submit the grant, right, then we got a certain amount of time frame till we get other people to sign off and do it, so we know exactly.
So are you saying when we submit a grant application, what is the time frame for receiving a notification back from the
Yeah.
funder?
That's
We don't know. It can be a year, it can be 3 weeks, it could be
Okay, so
2
then
years.
When you do get it, to be the other part, okay, so when you do get it, yes, how much time do you have to go to every department before you get signed off and? Because you said you have to get these signed off.
The grant application,
No, you already have the grant, you said you have to get the checks and balances.
so we haven't talked about getting the grant yet, we've only talked about submitting a grant. So when we do get a grant back that we've been awarded, it really depends on the funding agency. So once they award us, they say, okay, great, you've been awarded, it might just be that for 2 months. Then we'll hear, we're gonna start the contracting, it could take another 3 to a year and a half to get a contract executed.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I just wasn't following the
That's
question.
fine.
Okay, yeah, so we'll finish this and.
Yeah, no, I was just gonna introduce my colleague Maggie,
Sure.
who's going to talk a little bit about the strategic collaboration and what is helpful when it comes to developing certain grants.
Hi everyone, my name is Maggie Adorno. I'm happy to say today is my first day as a grant writer with the Central Grants Office.
Welcome aboard.
Thank you. So yeah, I'm gonna talk a little bit about strategic collaboration and all the pieces that go into it and why it's important. I think Candace did a really great job providing an overview of the process. I'm just gonna go in with a little bit more real life examples and what it's looked like in the office thus far. So first, we're gonna look at data and why data collection and data sharing is so important in the grants office. So first, it's a point of when we're writing a grant, we have the narrative, right? That's one of the pieces of storytelling, but we also have the numbers that are demonstrating success, and we're using those data points as well to inform important decisions like our work plans, right? We're talking about planning, that all has to come from data, conversations, collaboration with other people, departments. We're also using that data to determine staff needs and staff plans, and then other community needs, including the budget, right? If we have a grant, if we're saying we're proposing, for example, the CIT grant, and we want to enhance our training, we need to know who's going to do that training, how much are they going to cost, what's going to be the impact, who are they training, what's that impact going to be on the city. So all of this goes into our grant proposals. And it's also really helpful for us to be able to say this so that when the staff is out there on the field collecting the data that we later have to report on, and Angelica will go over post-award processes, but that's going to be important for us to kind of maintain our reputation, our reporting, and it's really important for auditing and making sure that the city of Bridgeport is a reputable grantee.
Maybe I just interrupt you just for 1 second. Just overall, like, this is good information and background, but like, we also want to just kind of keep on the budget numbers as much as we can, so
Okay.
we don't need to beat the whole process to get at this meeting, I would say at least. So if we can just, work through it.
Okay.
Councilman, do you have a question?
No, I was just gonna say something to that regard. You young ladies, are phenomenal. I've met you before and I think you guys are going to do great things. But right now, I'm looking at this and I wanna know about all these grants that are in yellow, the red. And so I would love for your presentation to be done at another time where all city council people are here so they can hear your message. Because what you guys are doing, I applaud you.
We appreciate that, thank you. So we can definitely skip through this presentation of our day-to-day, because we just thought that it was very important, because of all the feedback that we've been receiving about maybe not everyone understanding what it is, what we do. So we can certainly skip over it quickly.
Yeah, I think that would.
And then the one thing I am going to ask you allow me to do is to play the video that is included in the presentation, which is just a quick excerpt from the San Diego mayor that I think would be very helpful to us.
I don't know why it's not here. I'm gonna sign it.
I could have her get that up while we start talking about.
Meg, you wanna just kind of finish the highlights
Yeah,
of this?
so you wanna just go
portion?
over what your highlights in the presentation were, or you're
No.
like so taken off now, right?
No, it's okay.
No,
I don't have any comments on the actual numbers, so I'll just pass it over to
He was talking
Iselina.
about your presentation, he didn't wanna cut you off from doing your
Yeah.
presentation, so if you wanted to talk about the shovel readiness of projects, which I kinda covered already when we talk about the brownfield, so.
I mean, yeah, a lot of it was already discussed. It would just be like a repeat, so I think we're okay.
Yeah, things that, we actually had examples of things that kept us from being able to apply for grants, so she was just gonna talk about a couple of those. So if you wanna schedule a separate meeting where we could come and do this, that we could just do it then.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna play the
Ready to
video
go?
now. Yeah.
Cool.
Everyone?
Okay, so.
So we did attend a lot of webinars and informational sessions and all those things that people think we didn't. And this is one of them that we went to.
5 Bridge, which we anticipate starting this fall. So we're trying to put these resources to work very quickly. Let me try and power through a couple key points that I'm hopeful are helpful to some of you who are starting this process. Let me, with all due respect to our great partners at DOT, I want to say that part of the headline for this is that this was not necessarily an easy process, but it was one of those situations where, if you don't succeed, try again, and we were ultimately successful, and I'm deeply appreciative. Let me tell you a little bit about what I mean by that. The process for the Palm Avenue 805 bridge, we applied for 5 separate times to the US DOT for funding through BUILD, through Tiger, through RAISE, through infra programs. And although we did not receive funding for those applications, what we did was take up DOT on the opportunity to discuss our applications after the fact, to get the advice and counsel on exactly what the administrator was talking a moment ago. How did we tell our story and how could we improve? They provided invaluable feedback that I think allowed us to improve our application and look for future funding opportunities. And I would highly encourage folks to avail yourselves of those opportunities if you're not already.
So again, nothing different than we're doing here. Applying, getting feedback, making our application stronger. It's exactly the same process that we went through to finally get to the award for the Congress Street Bridge.
Okay.
All right. Does Angelica want to touch on her part?
Yeah, I'll do a quick overview. Hi everyone, so I'm Angelica, I'm the OPM analyst. So essentially I'm the post-award individual. So you've just heard some valuable information from our grant writers that do everything pre-award, so that's application based. So right now I'm just going to quickly go through what post-award kind of looks like. So post-award is a lot of grant data analysis, so that's looking at trends, seeing any issues that are coming up, talking to program managers. Then I have the grant financial reporting and reimbursements. You know, we need to get our money. So how do we do that? Financial reports. So I make sure that all the expenses are reported. If we need to do any reimbursements, you know, draw down funds, I make sure all of the program reports are inputted and that we actually expended what we said we were going to in the grant. Next, we have program reporting. So program reports are necessary. We need to tell them what we are doing. So I work in tandem with the project managers to make sure that in the reports they have everything the funder is looking for. Are there photos? Are there any descriptive measures? Did they actually say there are any challenges? I just look over those reports and submit them right in. Then we have application process. So although I'm not a grant writer, I'm still a team player, so we do formula grants, and if my workload is a little overloaded, then I have my wonderful supervisor who will step in and do these applications on my behalf. Then next, we have monthly grant monitoring meetings. Every month, I meet with the departments to go over all of their grants. This is an opportunity for me to be able to speak to these program managers and say, what do you need? Are you expending your funds? Is there a budget revision that's needed? So these are really crucial to making sure we're on track with making sure our projects get done. Next, we have grant budget revisions. We didn't fill a position. We have a vacancy. Can we do a budget revision? Maybe change staffing? I make sure that that's allowable. I go over it with the project manager and we try to get it done in a timely manner because there are time frames that are needed. Then after that, we have funder engagement and status updates. I'm in constant communication with our funders, and that is imperative because our funders are the ones who let us know when there's opportunities, if there's new opportunities, and other things that could be submitted. So having those communications with funders is amazing. Then after that, we have annual grant closeout analysis. Every year I do a closeout analysis. I'm looking at the grants we did before. Did we get all the revenue? Was revenue posted incorrectly? Did we do all our project reports? So I make sure that, again, that analysis is conducted annually. Then I have grant audits and desk reviews. We do get audited and we do have desk reviews. So I'm the individual pulling that information, pulling those invoices, POs, pulling anything that's needed that the funder wants to know, was this expended correctly? So I'm gathering all that information, putting it in a nice packet and sending it to the funder when it's needed. So after that, then we have grant technical support. Project managers really rely on the grant team, and they really rely on being able to communicate with me when they need it. So they'll call me up, they'll send me an email. Sometimes they just walk right in the office and say, Angelica, I need this information on this grant. Am I able to do X, Y, Z? Then I'm able to answer them, and then the project can move forward. After that, then we have support the team as needed. Again, we're just a great team, so whenever my teammates need my help, I'll jump right in, and if not, then, you know, we always try to help each other. And I hope that was a fast rundown. I tried to go over it all. If you have any questions, you can always ask me.
More than a comment. I'm just glad to see our grants department finally with the manpower that they've been asking for a long time. And from what I'm hearing, you've got, you know, the cream of the crop of people that know what they're doing to help us, you know, get grants for our city. And I just want to thank you all.
So if I could add one comment to that. Thank you. Thank you, I appreciate that, but I just want to correct you. This isn't the staff that we asked for, it's the staff that we got. And that there have been many positions cut in the past. One thing I did want to point out, Angelica, for instance, is doing 2 jobs, right? So when I came into the department, there was an OPM analyst position. We then added another OPM analyst position because we brought all financial reporting into our department. So that second analyst position was supposed to be solely for financial reporting that we pulled out of finance. There were a number of reasons for doing that. We never got that position back. So when you hear Angelica talking about all the things that she's doing and how she needs support, it isn't because she needs support because she doesn't have enough time to do her job. It's because she's too overworked. So I just wanted to make that point.
King.
Yes, sir.
I understand you got analysts down there that could use some work. Do you think is any way possible that some of your analysts can help out?
I mean, we got a load, as they know, and we're pretty loaded too. But we actually, honestly, Counselor, we work in concert a lot. On the audit side, you know, my auditor and Angelica, we do grant reporting, I help them with signing, reviewing all the quarterly reports, so we really are kind of in tandem. So I try to help whenever they need it.
Oh, no, Ken is very supportive, but just when she's speaking of audits, that's different from the audit, the city audit.
I was just hoping that he had somebody that he could send up to your office to help you out.
I
That's
mean,
what I was
we're pretty filled up with work, if you wanna come down and look sometime, trust me.
all right.
But when they need it, I mean, if anytime Selena calls or her
Fred
group.
Hodges.
No,
if they
very
need help,
supportive.
We'll
Yeah,
try to help where
Yeah,
we can.
just on this paper here with all these monies and grants and stuff like that, can you tell me which grants are continuing or which grants end after a couple years? Do we have that?
I wanna say probably
Lisa, can
every,
you just pause on that for
yes,
one sec? Councilwoman Valiant, was this about process you had a
Well,
question?
no, it's about this here, this proposed it's a request, right?
So, let's go with that, and then we'll come back and really drill down
All right.
on the chart, if that makes sense.
So,
Good.
right now, as it was stated, there was 2 analysts in your department.
and I'm not saying it was, just to be clear, it wasn't
No,
cut
no,
this year in the
no,
past,
it's
okay.
No, but again,
Mhm.
if we really, here we are, there's a need, we need to fill a need. So, I think that somewhere, somehow, correct me if I'm wrong, that whenever, whoever submitted this here should have added that analyst was needed to make your team complete.
And that probably should have been me, but quite honestly, I thought it was a nowhere
Done
ask.
deal. Right. It's a shame, because again, this is why sometimes we get into these predicaments that the job is not done not as quickly, but as it should be. Again, if there is a place, a time, whether it's now, to add that job there, so you can have your department complete.
One thing real quick, the other OPM analyst is in your office, or going to be, or is that not there anymore?
So I have right now one opening at, one budget and policy analyst open, so that's gonna be public safety. Kathleen will assist, with, works with Angelica to help with duties, and she could cover that, but that's really public safety for the.
Okay. One second. The other point, just to bear in mind too, in terms of work in the department, you know, Councilman Newton a couple years ago said, we're only funding 1 grant writer, we need 2, so we did that. And I know you've been persistent, and we are glad to have you.
After they were
that-
reduced from like 3 or 4 grant
Yeah.
writers to 1, I
in
got
the
1
past.
back,
Right.
yeah.
So we brought you back up to 2, and it's been a while since you've had the 2 and filled.
Right.
So, you know, some pressure's coming off the department that way, with simply those bodies, so that helps, but, Ken?
I was just gonna say from my perspective, because I do work a lot with them, I mean, this is the first time in many years they've really had a team of this many. So I think to give them a chance to see the next year, work it out, and then evaluate, because Maria, technology's changed things, okay? I had 30% more staff in finance 10, 15 years ago. The world has changed. We have to do more with less, you know what the budget's like,
That's
you're gonna
not
hear
great.
about the budget problems. So as much as they have a need, I have a need, everybody has a need, we have to try to stretch what we can, and I think this is the first time Selena has had a full team in, as long as I've been here. So, it may not be the full that you'd like, but I think give them a chance to see what they can do, and then evaluate, that would be my suggestion.
I respect what you're saying, but I still keep in mind that I would like to somehow consider adding 1 more person there. Because again, we're gonna do more with less. I think, like you said, we're in another century, so then we need to fill whatever void we need to fill that void.
Duly noted, Councilwoman.
Thank you.
Councilman Newton or no? Okay, all right, so we are appreciative of, seeing some of the ins and outs and the nuance and the challenges of getting all these grants, and that's understood. Before we dive into this, just one question, in terms of, Joe, you mentioned reimbursements, do we have problems, issues with certain agencies or anything like that in terms of getting particular reimbursements, or are we kind of doing okay?
Not issues with agencies doing reimbursements. I believe it's also, that interdepartmental relationship we have, because again, there are some grants where I can't get a reimbursement unless the progress report is submitted. And then it's making sure that that program manager submits the report so that I'm able to do a drawdown. The agencies, from the beginning of the NOFO, they tell you the requirements, what's needed for reimbursements and drawdowns. So on the reporting side, financial reporting side, we're good. It's again, maintaining those department relationships and making sure that all reporting is submitted.
Okay, all right, good to know. Councilman Newton?
Yeah. You all have heard me say this. The buildings department, that we need to bring people on board and bring money into the city. I said that. And grants is just as important as our building department that needs to be brought up to date because it brings revenue. How are we gonna generate revenue if we don't have the capacity? People that can help us get the money, that's what we gotta think about. And I would hope, and budget, we look at those departments and generate revenue. That's important to our city. And we need to think like that. Our buildings permitting system is antiquated. Okay? And we, instead of us filling it up, doing what needs to be done so they can bring that revenue into us, we don't do that. And I'm hoping that those areas that can generate some revenue, because we ain't got no cash cows, all right, that's going to generate the kind of revenue. And the bigger projects have abatements that it's gonna take a while for them to get online. We need to do that. And so I will think about this here one, and you all should think about it because it's revenue driven.
All right, Council President.
So I just have a couple questions. I apologize if I came in late and I didn't know what the handout was, and I kind of read it. So my question is to what Councilman Chairman Burns was talking about difficulty in reimbursements. Do you have a list to provide to us of those grants that we've lost reimbursement for, and the departments that are struggling with those reimbursable grants? Because we are kind of on the point that I'm making right now is that this is the time to report to the council those grants that we've either lost revenue for, so we can bring it up when those departments come before us, because this is a budgetary item, this is financial fiscal responsibility. And then two, those departments which are struggling, because I know that we've lost reimbursements, and I saw the COVID reimbursements that were lost when during COVID we struggled and to get some of those reimbursements, and then the city just stopped the program because it was too much. So my point to that is that is there a list that you can provide to us of grants that are behind on reimbursements and the percentage we're behind, because these are dollars that we have to account for in the next coming year's budget that can be a risk of us losing, because that's what happened to us last year. We had a MIRA grant and it was mismanaged, and now Career Resources running the grant themselves, which was almost $250,000 because of not your office's mismanagement, but the way it was run was mismanaged. So we lost money, whereas we had programmatic dollars that we're losing. So that's what I wanna know. If you can provide us with that list of those grants that are non-compliant, because those departments need to be able to explain the non-compliance of loss of funds, because You know, last year when we were with the health department, it became a very hot topic, losing that grant, and now, you know, thankfully Ernie's job was able to pick it up to service the Bridgeport residents still. Do you know what I mean?
I know what you mean, and I'm trying to be very careful with
This
my
is time to
words.
tell. I like to tell. So this is about the money that, this will validate, and this is, I say this to you with all kindness, it's not telling to be a snitch, but it is our job as a council to know when we are losing funds. Not to be like, oh, by the way, we lost this grant because we were non-compliant, and they decided to give it to another municipality. We've had that happen before, and it's not been your department's often problem. It has been other things, so this is the place where we can fix this.
So
That's one of the things Scott and I talk about all the time.
So in the monitoring meetings that we hold monthly, we identify these issues. I just want everyone to understand the action that's taken. When there's an issue and we feel like it's not being resolved, then we report to our higher ups. If the program manager is not being held accountable by their superiors, there's nothing that I can do about that. And sending an email to the city council to say, this is what's happening and my superiors are doing nothing about it, is probably not what I want to do to my career. Do you follow me?
Well, this is the time that you do it. This here right now.
So what
is
I
the
can
time
tell
to-
you right now is that we don't have any issues right now because Angelica
So we're
meets
up to date
with,
on all grants.
we are up to date with everything right now, as of today. There are no issues, and Scott asked me after this meeting if I could share our spreadsheets with you so that you can see. And I'll explain to you that once you look at the spreadsheet, the last column, if it's red and has parentheses on it, that means that's the money that we're missing.
Good.
Thank you, Council President, just to also help address, and I apologize that I came late, so this may be covered, but if you didn't hear, besides their monthly monitoring meetings, Fred coordinates with Selena, an umbrella meeting every couple of months with all the agencies involved in grants, and we literally, Frank, everybody's there, and we sit and go through this list so that if there's something getting behind, that the department's pushed to try to do what they have to do, and, Assistant CAG could talk more about that if you'd like. The only area I'm aware of in the last few years that did have an issue that got serious, frankly, was outside their area. It was within CDBG, and we almost lost potentially a couple million dollars, and they got an extension, but it took Nestor actually helped a lot.
CDBG, police, ticket reimbursement, we lost that overtime money. There are a bunch that we've lost overtime.
But they did.
But right now,
extension on
we're
most of it.
okay.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
But yes. So all those
That's
things
right.
are true.
And
Yes.
those are things that nobody knew, we didn't know. That's why I'm asking that. I just wanna be sure.
But that's their, and just to put it out there, that's their overtime budget. So if they don't collect money from a grant because they didn't do what they were supposed to do, and then it comes out of their overtime budget. Yep, I said something. And that's what we're trying to avoid. When I send out all my emails that get no responses.
Yeah, good, Fred. Let's go.
I think like I was just asking on the spreadsheet here, because like in my office that we have grants that are continuing, like some grants maybe last only 3 years or 2 years, and then that's it. On the spreadsheet here, which ones are continuing and which ones will be ending in a year or two or something.
So look, you have a start date, expiration date, so most all federal grants are multi-year. So you'll see here what the start and end dates are, but once they're end, they end. We don't get them again unless we apply again and are able to.
And based on the data and the information and reimbursement and all that stuff, will we be able to apply for that again, or they just end at that time?
It usually just ends at that time,
Okay.
because understand that most grants, not all, aren't intended to fund your ongoing, it's to get you kind of started.
Yeah, I guess because the start end date, I'll just find out later on, is will it be applying for some of the ones again next time it comes up.
Yeah, like, we can go through this list
Okay.
quickly if
I
you want.
appreciate it. Yeah.
Like this, the first one, that's assistance to firefighters. We apply for that almost every year.
Okay.
So we have the fire department, the grants department, and assistance to firefighters, FEMA, we have a great relationship. And they tell us, don't bother this year, you got too much money last year, those kinds of things. So depending on what their feedback is for that year is when we decide to apply or not to apply. So that's FEMA. Port security, that's another FEMA grant. We apply for that every year. It's through the EOC. Scott Appleby, or the emergency management director, takes the lead.
24389?
Yes. And and there's just one that year. Sometimes you'll see more than one project code because we apply and get awarded for more than one project. So every project has a different project code. Flood, FEMA mitigation, this is a one-time deal. This was a planning grant for our flood control plan. So once the flood control plan is completed, there were some state dollars that had been said we were getting, but I'm not sure. If not, then we'll be taking that plan and applying to FEMA for the implementation dollars for the
And which
flood.
project number is that?
That would be 22476.
Okay.
The next,
Let's ask on that one if I may.
mhm.
So this one closes out the end of May. Have we spent nothing on it?
We have, it's not reflected here because they just started entering into contract with the different companies that are doing the different flood projects.
And we requested an
And
extension.
we are requesting, and we requested a one-year extension that is now being considered by the state, because this is a pass-through.
So theoretically, if we don't spend by that date, do we return what's?
No, we have
no.
requested a year extension,
Okay,
so
but-
now that's
but
gonna
if
turn
that's
to
not
26.
acceptable, let's say.
And at that point, if we need another one, then we'll get another extension, that's allowed here. But but based on the feedback that we got from Equity, we should be done by that,
But
no expiration.
again, hypothetically,
Mhm.
if there's no extension.
Oh, they're gonna give us an
we look-
extension, so,
I'm not, that's not my question.
okay,
If the deadline is the deadline, and again, let's just take the worst case scenario. It's closed out the end of May, we lose the money, if there's no extension.
yes.
Okay, all right, I'm good. Denise?
But if there is extensions, how many are you allowed to?
There's no cap on this grant, so they understand all the barriers that we encounter when we're doing these types of projects. So as long as we're making progress, we're reporting, and we're doing everything that's required by the contract, they never deny us an extension.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, go ahead, sir. You wanna just go through the other ones then?
Oh, I'm sorry, I got stuck. Food purchase assistance, that's the grant that Chad does with the East End NRZ to provide food to different places. So they were going to give us more money the next year, but Trump administration just said no more past this year, so they won't have that program moving forward. Energy efficiency grant, I hate trying to describe this grant because it's a voucher program that Chad's doing that I don't explain very well. But this was a formula grant that we got from, so formula meaning that it was allocated to Bridgeport because we're Bridgeport. And Chad is putting together a project that allows vouchers for different, this is where I get lost, agencies or people, I can't remember, for energy efficiency purposes. And I could send you a little scope on that later, it's just not coming to me off the top of my head right now. USDA composting, that is the, I'm gonna forget the name of it every way, Bridgeport, what is it called?
Park City Compost.
Park City Compost. That's the grant that I was talking about earlier when I was explaining how much difficulty and that they're giving us with specific details about our project. So right now, we don't have a contract. We're trying to get a contract once we're able to provide them more details about location and other things. Transportation Alternatives is a phase 1, phase 2 project through MetroCog for improvements to Lower Park Avenue. There should be a phase 2 somewhere here. Yeah, you'll see it further down. HUD EDI sidewalk is again, God, you're really putting me on the spot right here. Sidewalk
honestly,
improvements.
it-
That HUD EDI sidewalks is downtown sidewalks and lighting. That was a CDS project that went to HUD.
Okay. Cause we can always hit the departments that are here too, so when
Right.
they come before us, again, that's why we wanna hear from you.
Yep, Sliver by the River is a partnership with TPL for improvements to Sliver by the River. Again, phase 2, we just talked about that. Raise, I don't think we need to talk about that, or do you have questions about Congress Street Bridge?
Not Congress Street, not yet, but
Oh.
the one that says A/pending, does it, could it mean that it will be awarded, or you don't know?
It means that we were awarded, but we're not in contract yet. This planning and demonstration, US Streets Off for All, I can't even remember which one this was at this point.
Don't miss
But
Congress
go to
Street
OPED for
Bridge.
that one.
Don't miss,
Just pause that. If we-
don't miss Cross Street Bridge.
Have you
Oh,
heard anything
sorry.
new on that?
Gee, no.
Okay.
So, we received a notification in January saying that we were awarded and that we would have someone reaching out to us to talk about the specific agreement that we would be requested to sign. They have about 5 different agreements through different agencies within DOT that they're not even sure which one the grant program was gonna run through. So, we know.
When you said that someone was gonna be in touch, who is that someone?
Someone from DOT, whether it's from
DOT?
Federal Highways, whatever agency they decided to run this through, someone from that agency was gonna call us. Federal agency.
Ms. Vickers from the mayor's office has something?
Yeah, through the chair, just an update, the only other tiny update we have on the bridge is that we are moving forward, hoping that things continue and that we'll get a contract once we figure out where it, which department federally, what that looks like. But that way that there's no backup on the city side. We're ready to go, we're moving forward like we're expecting everything to continue on.
So, again, we don't wanna lose this money. So someone, I don't know who, should be checking up on this.
We are. So Congressman Himes is working through the legislative affairs section of.
Not fast enough, but I'll
Well,
give him a
but-
call
well,
tomorrow.
There's almost two, we don't wanna duck our heads up too high, because we don't wanna be a target to be cut either. So he's trying to figure out where we are.
And let me just, you already know who's in the White House.
45, 47.
I'm hoping that he doesn't slash it. But, there are no guarantees, because if you look at what he's doing around the country, hurting a lot of municipalities and states. So, I don't know, I'm hoping that Jim Hines and Murphy and them guys can get the federal people to get a contract out so we can move it, because it's out of the city's hands, am I right? Am I right? It's
Yes,
out of our
and what I would
hands.
like to add to that I forgot to mention, the one change that has been made to this grant program since the Trump administration came in is they changed the name of it. So,
What's it called
Raise, because I forget these things, I can't remember everything, was Rebuilding American Infrastructure with Sustainability and Equity.
It's right there, Grace.
So equity,
Right.
and so they came and changed the name. So we're hoping that that's the only thing they're gonna do is change the name. Now it's back to build, which is better utilizing investments to leverage development. So that's him just putting his name on it.
Okay. Yeah, he just.
So now when these draft agreements came out, they came out with that build name on it.
Okay. All right.
Okay, yeah.
Oh, I thought I was. Okay, we already talked about government to government because that was one of the 5. These ADA improvements, I don't think that money's going anywhere, but I don't know. Again,
Which,
that's just east side.
Which project number for me?
This is 24,395.
24,395, okay.
And again, that was state money, but we're just, when we started reading about what DEI is, I mean, it's so across the board that we were just trying to, we figured ADA, maybe. HRSA, both of these HRSA projects are CDS funded, so congressionally directed spending for records management at the health department and another IT project at the health department. I actually am going to be reaching out to the administration regarding this because I met with Curtis the other day and we thought we might have some challenges here, so. But we have identified them and we're taking care of them. ARPA Eisenhower Center funding, that was their $100,000 that they got for senior center funding, and they've been spending that without any issue. We have our two other SWCA programs. Those are annual programs. We put them here just because we weren't really sure, and they were sent us some email that thought that we might have a concern, but since then there hasn't been any discussion. The last one is the other senior center funding for their programming, which Eisenhower had their own, and then the other ones benefited from this one. So everyone's spending their money. There is no issue with that we have identified. The next two are red ones that we talked about already. Workforce development is a grant that the health department has, and it's safe to say, but it's literally picking up the slack from the other stuff that got taken away from us. So again, just covering more health department initiatives. Public health emergency preparedness. When the notifications came out initially about the cuts, this was one of the ones that the health Department of Public Health state level had identified with concerns, but nothing has come since the initial notification. And I think everybody knows what public health preparedness is. I'm sorry, and if there's someone who needs an explanation. HUD Lead Hazard Reduction Grant Program, I think that's an ongoing one that we get every few years. Lead abatement remediation for lead poisoned homes or units. So we just got and implemented that just recently within the last month or two. So we are closing out, about to be finished closing out the last one and starting up this new grant. Heat and air quality preparedness and response training, training that the health department's gonna receive. It's about $25,000 of training they're receiving for that purpose, and I'm not even sure if their complete plan for doing so is completed because it's part of the process. And then the last one was the CIT that got cut and we talked about already.
Okay.
So then you said you had some other grants that you didn't show,
Right, so this is only grants that we identify for potential impact, federal or state pass-through federal.
What other type of grants do you get?
We have the same,
Fall into federal or state?
a whole plethora of other grants that we monitor outside of these. So we have two spreadsheets, one that's just grant funded, and then the meeting that Ken spoke about, capital funded grants, so grants that require capital match. So we have two different spreadsheets with all the grants that we have, which are awarded, pending or waiting to be implemented. So I could send.
A lot of the engineering grants,
Right.
Lafayette Boulevard, the traffic signal grants.
Seaview Avenue,
Seaview
all those
Avenue,
grants.
Those kind of things.
Can you,
Lafayette, sir,
Selena, we probably have this already, but get a copy of those offshoot grants?
I'll send you both spreadsheets and they'll be very self-explanatory about where they are, kind of almost in the same type of format.
Okay, that's fine, so at least we know what the offshoot grants are that are out there.
That's where I'm saying in that last column, if you see red and negative, that'll just be the amount of funds that we've expended and haven't received back.
Okay, that's good for us to know.
And will that be clearly aligned with departments?
Yes, they're by department.
Okay.
And everything has a separate section awarded pending for each department.
Broad question I've got, and I'm thinking more like health with lead, for example. Any of these directly related to funding positions, and maybe that's a question for Frank, but maybe.
I can answer that,
Yeah.
So the lead grant, yeah, it funds the program manager, the outreach worker, and three, I forgot their new title, but they used to be epidemiologist, health code inspector, enforcement.
Inspectors, yeah.
So yeah, we pay for 3 out of that grant, an outreach worker and the program manager.
Okay. And so, for the 6 million that I see here, do we get that all at once, or?
It's reimbursement based.
Reimbursement
So it's part of the whole process that Angelica does with
Yeah.
reporting and requesting reimbursements. I believe these are quarterly,
Quarterly,
right? So
yes.
quarterly she goes in, and understanding that every agency has their own requirements for what reimbursements are. And so for this particular one, she has to submit the financial report, and not till the financial report gets approved can she request the reimbursement. So it's this whole process that she goes through, making sure that we're getting back what we report.
Okay. Sounds good. Are there any other closely aligned grants with jobs and positions within the city? At least on this sheet?
Not on this sheet. No. Outside of that one, I wanna say that would be the only one outside of our SWICA ones that sometimes pays for a part-time person when they have one. But outside of that, no. No positions here.
So just, but you know, about the other divisions, CPG, home, all those folks are 100% federal funded. If somehow that program changed, that could affect those folks.
Got none to do with it.
And, no, partially, that is.
So just based on this, and again, we've got 4 that are out the door. 3 of them seem to be health, 1, an OPED, a planning grant. Any sense of how we're gonna be affected as a city in terms of losing these services, or is this more,
So we've just
question
been,
for our departments?
it's a question for the departments. Frank can tell you that more recently, there was a question about what should we do? And it's a collaborative decision. And so we have plans for the things that we identified and thought strongly could be impacted, and then just been watching the others, but not entering or expending unnecessarily until we let some of this play out and figure out where we are. So as part of this, sometimes we're reaching out to funders and saying, hey, if we don't start this project and we give it 3 to 6 months for this Fed thing to play out,
Yeah.
are you gonna give us an opportunity for an extension? Will you accept it? So we're doing all of that kind of behind the scenes stuff too.
Good, good. The other point I just might share, because, you know, the bridge, I think, is the big, literally the big project and dollar figure and all that. And we did meet with Congressman Himes in DC in March, for those of us who were down there. And he seemed to really emphasize the fact that if there's a contract, we're good, and if there's not, nothing is secure.
So that was from the beginning, how we were navigating through this whole situation. And like Fred mentioned, everyone kind of stepped up to the plate, and we were getting contracts executed in like a day because we understood the importance of being in contract versus not.
Right.
But we have no control over getting into contract. When we do, you know, it was very surprising because at the beginning when it started happening, you would think that these federal agencies would be following the executive orders and the advice, and they were doing exactly the opposite. They were advising us, come on, sign, let's do this, we're trying to do so. So they were really trying to move those contracts. So when that happened, we obliged and got it signed very quickly, but until they do that, we just have no control.
Okay, good. Yeah, so, I mean, there are a handful of pending, award pending, so obviously we wanna get those done, as you said, ASAP. The other piece I would share, and this is for everyone, I think, again, I heard it a couple times at the conference, was this. they're looking to cut grants, they're looking to cut programs, whatever. But for us as cities and, you know, elected officials and administrators and all that, is to just keep asking for money, keep demonstrating the need, because the concern is, we're not gonna get it, let's not even bother.
I got some of that.
Then they say, ah, see, you don't need it.
I got some of
So-
that at the very beginning, like when we applied to Build-A-Share, and I got someone saying back, well, should we even be doing that? I said, they opened the application. They are accepting applications. Yes, we should be submitting an application. So I'm right on board with you
Yeah,
with that.
so, you know, for us as council reps, when we hear grants or administration, just, you know, keep putting out there and, you
Yeah.
know, hopefully this will pass. So, all right, any other questions? No? We good? Okay, so, you know, I think, and as we go ahead, Frank, we'll look at how, this affects our different departments and how we can function. And, obviously, I would say just keep us apprised if we should lose anything here or find any other speed bumps.
I just wanna thank your team for the informative presentation, and I will be in your office to see you.
I'm sure you will be. I look forward to it.
Good job.
All right, if there's no further questions, I move for adjournment.
Motion.
I made the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.